now. Okay, so welcome to everybody who's been able to come out today. I want to thank all three campaigns, the McCormick campaign, the Hardy campaign, and the Holness campaign for coming out today. Super excited to have y'all. My name is Dylan. I'm the president of Florida College Democrats, representing college Democrats across the state of Florida with our 15 chapters, whether it's South, Central, North, and even some in the Panhandle. And we're super happy to be here with everybody. So with all that, I'm going to pass it over to Mitchell, our Director of Political Affairs, to kind of get this thing going.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. And thank you to the three of you for also coming out. I'll just go ahead and explain a little bit about the time limits in case, just to make sure that there weren't any problems getting the information to any of y'all's campaigns. But we will do 3-minute opening statements to begin. Follow that, we'll just go through some questions. With questions and with the statements, we are going to do them alphabetically by last name. So Ms. Chefilus-McCormick, you'll start us off, then we'll go to Mr. Hardy and then Mr. Holness. And after that, we'll just do reverse order for the rest of the event. So like I said, 3 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes to respond to a question, and then 3 minutes for closing statements at the end. Are there any questions or anything? All right, awesome. With that, Ms. McCormick, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having, or is it good evening? The days blend in on a campaign, but we are so happy to be here today. I'm Sheila Chefilus-McCormick, and I am running for Congress. This is not my first time running for the seat. I originally ran in 2018. And in 2018, I ran with a cohort of women who decided that it was time for us to have our voices heard, especially working class families and women of color. And so I ran in 2018 with that class, and here I am again running. And my background is that I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a CEO of a healthcare company. I've been advocating in Congress for a long time. I matriculated and went to Howard University for undergrad, University of Maryland for my master's in business administration, and St. Thomas University. Once I graduated, I was in healthcare regulation, and I really thought that was my calling. And I kept on moving forward, and I was in healthcare executive. In that capacity, I was able to transform our healthcare company, where I introduced cloud computing. At that time, it was such a big deal in healthcare to be transitioning technology. Because I was a recent grad and I had more experience, I was able to do that ahead of any other healthcare companies. And I was also able to understand the law and fuse the two. And that's really where I got my start when it came to my career. In that, my daughter was diagnosed and I started advocating. I was invited to go to Congress to talk about healthcare issues and how we can go forward. And fast forward, we're here. So why am I running for Congress? I'm running for Congress because there's change that's needed in our district. In 2018, when I decided to run, it was really because the change that we needed in the district wasn't coming. We saw a brain drain where you needed a job, even if you lived here, worked here, and you went to school here. Unfortunately, a lot of our children had to move out for better jobs. So we recognized the need to have jobs in the district, and we recognized the next generation of children who were being diagnosed didn't have access to different speech therapies, didn't have access to developmental therapy. It was just so heartbreaking to see how an entire district was being left behind. In addition to that, we just saw a lot of inequalities that wasn't right. And so that's when I stepped up to run. And everyone said I was crazy for running, but I knew it was a moment for political courage, and that's why I did it. And I'm continuing that run right now, running for political courage because of my political courage, and knowing that work that needs to be done, it needs to be a fresh new work. When Alcee Hastings first came into office, he was an outsider. He was new, and he was able to do a lot of things because of that, because he had a fresh idea, because he saw what needed to be done, and he wasn't co-opted into a system that has been leading us into the wrong direction. Presently, our district has been led into high numbers of unemployment. Our district has been filled with poverty, and our district has not had any real jobs that we could see our people growing in. And I believe it's because we haven't actually named our district. Who are we? I look at other places and I see them becoming the agricultural tech capitals of the world. Who are we? We should be the agricultural tech capital of the world. What are we doing with all the education and the students we have? And that's what I'm running for. I've been able to take a business from 2 million a year to 20 million a year with technology and healthcare, infusing all of it. We need that kind of energy and understanding to know how we can propel ourselves to the next generation and propel our district. And we need to have it with someone who's done the work. My campaign has been one of the largest campaigns, but we have so many different types of people. We've actively had interns who we've given scholarships to. Our interns spans from schools from St. Thomas School of Law, which is minorities. Yes.
Sorry, your 3 minutes is up. Do you think you can just finish that thought real quick?
Okay, well, long story short, the way we run our campaign is the way I ran my business. We use a lot of different people, cross-cultural, and we've been able to leverage ourselves, and we plan on doing that in Congress.
Mr. Hardy, throw it to you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for caring about the outcome of this special election. So my name is Omari Hardy. Before coming into the legislature, well, let's start all the way at the beginning. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale in Broward County. I have two moms, and they were both educators. I come from a long line of educators. My parents, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, they were all educators. So I went to the University of Miami, got a degree in economics, and followed my parents' footsteps, teaching civics in middle school, 7th grade civics in Palm Beach County. So I moved up to Palm Beach County. And when I moved up here, I moved to a little town called Lake Worth. It's 7 square miles, and it's a unique town. It was founded over 100 years ago by two former slaves, Fannie and Sam James. And today it's an extremely diverse city. 65+% of the residents are non-white. Tremendous Guatemalan Mayan community, Haitian community, African-American community. It's a multicultural city, but when I looked up on the city commission dais and saw who was representing the community, I didn't see that diversity. There was not a single person of color on the dais, and there weren't any working class people who went to work every day. They weren't serving on the city commission. It was business owners, it was landlords, it was retirees. And I saw it in our community because on the Black side of town and on the Hispanic side of town, we didn't have basic infrastructure. We had miles and miles of unpaved roads. In urban Palm Beach County, less than 10 minutes away from Mar-a-Lago. I found that to be unconscionable, inexcusable. So I ran and I won. I beat a 3-term incumbent by just 18 votes. And when I got in, I learned a lot about how government actually works, right? As a civics teacher, I had some textbook understanding of how it works. But in reality, what I found was that the perception that a lot of folks have of politics as being a struggle between an established upper class and a disempowered underclass, I think that reflects the reality. Because over and over again, I would give my colleagues on the dais opportunities to do things for poor and working class folks, and they would excuse their way out of it. They would find some excuse for why it was too difficult, too complicated. And so it was really that experience of serving at the local level, trying to do good things for disenfranchised people that turned me from a more or less generic Democrat into a progressive Democrat. And since then, I've had the opportunity to serve in the legislature, where I serve currently in the Florida House of Representatives. We fought some very bad bills, voting rights, voter suppression. I'm not sure if you've heard about the so-called right to farm bill, which allows the sugar industry to pollute without any ramifications and making it very difficult for people of color, poor and working class people of color, to hold them accountable by taking them to court. Fought hard against that, fought hard against the trans sports ban, which unfortunately the Republicans decided to push. And look, I'm running because I think we're in a unique historical moment. In the history of this nation. Okay, I'll just finish the thought. There are folks in this country who don't believe that we need to become a multiracial democracy in which women and people of color and sexual minorities like the LGBTQ+ community have a say. And what this election is about, and what this moment in history is about choosing which direction we want to go in. And that's why I'm running, because I think this is an important historical moment for us.
And Mr. Holness, your opening statement.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I'm Dale Holness. I'm an immigrant. I graduated from Plantation High School attended Broward College for a while I was there. I became a member of the student government as a freshman senator. I worked also, being an immigrant. We didn't have much money and had to find a way forward. So I worked, and one of the jobs I had, the second one was at McDonald's. And while I was there, they promoted me up to becoming an assistant manager, then a general manager. Became a homeowner at the age of 22. And then later got into real estate business, where I built a real estate company that at its peak had 86 agents, and we're doing 500-600 transactions per year. While being a member of the Realtors Association, I interviewed all the candidates for the City Commission in Lauderhill, because I served on the Political Action Committee candidate screening subcommittee, and found it appalling that the leaders that were there didn't find it awful that across the street from City Hall, there was drug dealers selling drugs openly. And on the other side was the police station. And the area was very blighted in Lauderhill, in central Lauderhill. Many of you are too young to know that. But I went to work, finding a way and finding a solution after there was no real adequate answer. It was just happening. One leader said it wasn't unusual for that kind of stuff to happen in urban areas. And others said that they don't know what they could do about it. So I decided to start working towards a solution, doing cleanup within the area, working with even Career Source to bring some jobs to the folks that were on the corner. So I got elected in 2004 after 2 tries at running for office, but being engaged and staying engaged. Right after being elected in 2004, I started the Lauderhill Chamber of Commerce to help our business that were struggling. I also put together a Lauderhill Education A+ plan. I pushed and we bought that corner store in Plaza where the drug dealers were, transform it into a place where young people could learn through right side poets and how to use poetry to help them academically. Our schools were struggling. I put together some educators and started Lauderhill Education A+ plan, funded at $100,000 a year. Increased the home ownership in that area, cleaned the area up. People were amazed that we were able to do that within not a very long time. I then got elected to the county commission in 2010, continued to work to be inclusive, increase the amount of money we spend with women and minorities in contracting from 10.25% to 44%, which equal last year $136 million. That's the kind of work I want to continue to do if I'm able to go to the U.S. Congress.
Thank you all. For our first question, this will be again for you, Mr. Holness, and we'll just go back in reverse order. What will be your top legislative priorities if you are elected?
Okay. Well, the top priority is to ensure that we're getting funding and opportunities in the high poverty, high unemployment areas of this district, utilizing the Opportunity Zone Act, amending it to make it so that those people who are living in those areas get jobs within the Opportunity Zone. The Opportunity Zone Act, for those who don't know, allows for wealthy folks to invest in these areas and get tax write-off for the capital gains. But it doesn't require that anyone from the community or the neighborhoods be given jobs or any of the businesses there get to do any contracting with these entities that are coming in. With the high poverty, high unemployment in many of these communities, in the Glades, in Northwest Fort Lauderdale, in Northwest Pompano, we have to find a better mechanism to move people forward. So we should put additional funding for education, for job training, for technical training, to support the small minority women-owned businesses that mostly exist in these communities, to give them access to capital and technical training so that they can grow and develop to increase the employment level and bring wealth there. Also, increase home ownership. The home ownership rate in this district is about 54-55% compared to adjoining district at 72%. That's one of the reasons why we have generational poverty in these communities. So increasing home ownership is going to be an essential piece, utilizing the Section 8 voucher as a tool for home ownership rather than just for renting. Putting money into early education, for daycare, for early education, and additional funding to help with healthcare within these communities, to build more infrastructure and provide more care for those who live within these communities so that they can live healthy and prosper. And the other thing is to ensure that we change our criminal justice system that criminalizes too many things, too many minor offensive. I push for and continue to support the civil citation program started off at county with making marijuana something you don't get arrested for, and expand it to most misdemeanor offenses, and continue to support the juvenile civil citation program that's extremely successful. It has a 90% success rate.
Your 2 minutes is up. Could you just finish that thought real quick?
The juvenile civil citation program have a 90% success rate with less than 3% recidivism, saving 46 million since we've had it in place. Those are the kind of things that we need to put in place to ensure that we reduce our prison population. We can't be the country that boasts that we have the most people in prison, and be as productive as we can be and create the kind of wealth and prosperity for everyone as we can.
And Mr. Hardy, the same question for you. What will be your top legislative priorities if you are elected?
Wow. So it's tough because folks have very real material needs that have gone unmet for a long time. And with respect to the economics, there are three things that stand out to me. Of course, it's healthcare. Of course, it's affordable housing, and it's education. Those are the things that I think would affect residents of this district materially. If we can pass universal healthcare, Medicare for all, if we can invest $2.5 trillion in affordable housing over the next 10 years and make housing assistance an entitlement, which means that as long as you qualify, you get assistance, that we don't have wait lists for housing assistance like Section 8 or any other type of affordable housing thing. Right now, it takes years to get off of a wait list for housing assistance. It's so bad that over 3/4 of Americans who qualify for housing assistance never get it, because we haven't put the funding behind it to ensure that everyone who qualifies has access to it. And of course, with education, and it starts for me with early childhood learning, VPK, and I'm talking as a former classroom educator here, you can draw a straight line from kindergarten readiness to 3rd grade reading and math, and from there onward to many other crucial factors. And then we have to make sure that we don't stop investing in our young people as soon as they turn 18. So I believe in tuition-free college and university. I believe in student debt cancellation. That's extremely important. Those things, if we could get those things done, I would be very happy. But I think we have a larger, even more systemic problem in that we have a Republican Party that is attacking our democracy, that's attacking the last 60 years of progress here in this country. And if we don't pass voting rights legislation, if we don't pass legislation to stop the gerrymandering that is occurring right now in the Florida Capitol, if we don't pass legislation to bring in Washington, D.C. as a state and give congressional representation to the 700,000 people there, if we don't pass legislation to allow Puerto Rico an opportunity to determine for itself, its people to determine for themselves the kind of future that they want with respect to their relationship with the United States or a lack thereof, if we don't do these things, then I think that we will lose all that we've gained over the last 60 to 70 years, and that would be a tragedy. So it's tough for me. I think you get a sense of the things, the economics and the broader democratic reforms that I think are necessary. It's tough to say which one should come first, but they're both important.
And Ms. Cormick, finally to you, if you are elected, what legislative priorities will be at the top of your list?
Okay, hold on 1 minute. All right, I'm timing myself. I don't want any mishaps again. Well, I'm very clear on what we're doing. Now, this is a special election. When we get in office, you have to hit the ground running. You have to have a plan. So we have the People's Prosperity Plan. The reason we are leading with the People's Prosperity Plan, because as of right now, during this legislative session, when the priorities were set on what are the priorities, economic advancement and preventing an economic collapse was definitely on board. So our People's Prosperity Plan is definitely on board with where Congress is going. What we're asking for is a $1,000 stimulus check for everybody who's over 18 and who makes less than $75,000. The reason why I even put that forward 8 months ago was because we realized that a lot of people were introducing other plans. One of the plans was a childhood tax credit, which gives you $300 per child, but that leaves out a lot of our elderly, and it leaves out all of our college students, and it leaves out many people in our district, and that's just not fair. And that's why I proposed the People's Prosperity Plan. So at least we can have that money coming in, even if we have 2, 3, or maybe 4 checks, but at least everybody has a fair chance as catching up or dealing through the pandemic. In addition to that, we also are asking for more programs to help our district build up its infrastructure, its employment infrastructure. As a healthcare executive, as someone who has been advocating in Congress, I know one of our biggest things is attaching technology to what we have already in our district. Once we're able to pull down more money and demystify federal contracting, which has been my expertise for a long time, we'll see more jobs in our district when it comes to technology, when it comes to sciences, but more districts, more even for people who are in different fields of creativity, because now we would have a market. And I'm proposing for us to even be the Agricultural Technology Center here, which pulls in our college students, our programs, FAMU, and also local colleges. So we have a joint program that's built into our People's Prosperity Plan to deal directly with our students. And we also have one directly dealing with them getting jobs and completing their career. I made my 2 minutes.
Awesome, thank you. For our next question, we'll go back to you, Ms. McCormick. We have seen in Congress right now that the reconciliation bill and the infrastructure bill are creating somewhat of a divide in Congress among the Democratic Party. If you were in Congress today, where would you stand on this issue?
Well, I would definitely stand on keeping the 3.5 trillion. And the reason why is because our district needs it. And I'm not just telling you this, oh, I would stand by it. I've proven that I don't break or bend compared to any situation there. I'm going to stand my ground. And that's something that we needed. And the reason why I say that is because if you look carefully at what was happening, you had Cinema and other people who were saying, we want to do private negotiations, not telling the public and the American people who elected them what they wanted to get rid of. Let's understand, anything they want to get rid of is getting rid of something that our district needs direly. There's nothing there that we don't need direly. And we have to understand that we have a lot of people going to Congress, and what they're doing is subtracting the people's needs, but they never stand up to subtract the industry's needs. You don't see them subtracting banking needs. You don't see them subtracting from any other industry that pays them. What I call them is donor owners. And we have to be cautious of that, because they don't stand against their donor owners, but they will stand against the people. So we need people who have backbone to go to Congress and do what they need to do. And that's the reason why I was endorsed by Brand New Congress very early on, because I've showed that consistently. When everyone said, oh, you can't run against a congressman because he's been there forever, I said that it's a hard choice, but if I have to choose between loyalty and the people who are suffering, I must choose the people. And that's what we need, because when you get to Congress, they're going to say the same thing to you. I donated to you. I was loyal. Who will you choose? And at that moment, we have to ask ourselves, has this person stood up against the establishment before? Has this person actually stood up against their donor owners? Do they have a history of doing it? Because if you can't do it now, when you get to Congress, and I've been advocating for the last 10 years, and you're dealing with big money, you're dealing with people who can really try and crush you and your business and your family, you're not going to do it. If you can't do it here, you can't do it there. And that's the difference, I think, that I've displayed from the beginning. I've always been me. I'm unapologetically me. I say what I have to say. And the only people I owe is the district. I take no money from anybody else who doesn't side with the people. And my endorsements show that, even with the CWA.
Mr. Hardy, same question to you. If you were in Congress today, where would you stand on the reconciliation and infrastructure bills?
Yeah, so I would not vote, and just to kind of break down the mechanics here, the president proposed one large bill initially, the Build Back Better agenda. After some pushback from moderate Democrats, he bifurcated the agenda into an infrastructure bill and social spending. And the infrastructure bill passed with 60 votes in the United States Senate. It was bipartisan. And the idea was that after that infrastructure bill passed with bipartisan support, the House and the Senate would agree to pass the compromise on the social spending portion, which started at $6 trillion and came down to $3.5 trillion. After the moderates got their victory in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, they have decided to renege on the deal and to say, well, you've got to now compromise on the compromise even further. My position is that we should take advantage of the fact that the margins between Democrats and Republicans is small, and that I would not vote for that bipartisan infrastructure package until we get a robust social spending bill out of the House with the guarantee that the Senate would also pass it. That's where I am. To me, the infrastructure bill, first of all, is much worse than it would have been if they had kept the bills together. So the infrastructure bill is not what I would have liked an infrastructure bill to be. We compromised on some of the things in there because we knew that there was a $3.5 trillion social spending bill. So now to rip that away from the American families who need vision, dental, and hearing care, who need affordable childcare, who need universal free BPK, who need free community college, which itself is a compromise, who need all of these things, it's an insult to the people who gave power to Democrats and expected Democrats to use that power to help them. So that's where I am. And look, with respect to my record of standing up to folks, I don't have the fortune of being wealthy and being able to pour over $1 million into my own campaign. But I have served in the legislature, and I've gone toe to toe with Big Sugar, which gave $11 million in the last cycle alone to state candidates. And I stood up to them and was just one of 7 members of the Florida House to vote against their top priority, one of the top priorities of the speaker and of the Senate president and of the governor. So I have a record of standing up to the powerful. I will continue to do that in the United States Congress, that's for sure.
And lastly, to you, Mr. Holness, if you were in Congress today, where would you stand on the reconciliation and infrastructure bills?
I certainly favor the $3.5 trillion. I think that it's essential that we put money into infrastructure. You know, I was out in the Glades, and one of the residents I was speaking to says, can you get the city commission and the mayor to invest in building our roads better and maintaining our roads? And the truth is this, that poor area doesn't have the ability to find the funding unless they raise taxes to where people can't afford their homes. So this is an investment in making America more competitive with the rest of the world. And the portion that goes towards investing in our most important asset, or human capital, is critical to the future of our country. I don't understand why so many of these folks don't understand the need for us to make these investments. They talk about spending. We spend for a lot of stuff that was more wasteful than this, in giving major tax cut to wealthy corporation and wealthy folks. Yet we don't want to put the money where it's going to bring us the greatest return in our people directly. So I would be on the rooftop shouting, calling out folks who are not doing what they need to do, and be prepared to go against them if I have to, even within my own party. Because sure, they may be considered moderate, but do they understand? And if you look at the folks in West Virginia, the need is greatest there than many other places. This is something that needs to be made clear and plain to all those residents there, so that there's an understanding that this person is standing against your best interests. You elect them to look out for your best interests. So that's something that I'll be doing in a robust way, every which way I can, to ensure we do that. And in terms of my campaign, we have the largest amount of donors in my campaign, people giving me as little as $1. So I have a broad-based support, and I'm never afraid of standing up to the wealthy and the powerful and those who are lobbyists, because I tell them where I stand up front and often. Because you give me some donation doesn't mean you own me. I'm not for sale.
Thank you all for that. For our next question, we'll start again with you, Mr. Holness. How, if anything, will you make college more affordable?
So I certainly believe that we ought to make college tuition free. I would prefer to see 4 years. There's 2 years on the table. We'll take that and start there and move forward. The debt reduction that we ought to have, we must have. Folks are out there who will spend the rest of their life paying for student loans. That doesn't make any sense at all for us to do that. That means you're crippling people's ability to take care of themselves and their families. So I stand strongly in support of free college education, but I want to also ensure that we provide funding for those who decide to go a different way and to go to technical school and get technical training and trade school and get those development, because not everyone is going to go to college. And you know, sometimes a plumber, if he owns his own business, can make more than a medical doctor. So I want to make sure that we're putting those investments in, but we also must ensure that we're investing early with early education, providing daycare for parents who need to go to work. There are people who are dropping out of the workforce today because they're not able to find good, decent, affordable daycare so that they can work. It's better for them, it seems, to stay home, which means that we're not going to be as productive as we need to be, which means that the skill training that many of these children need won't happen. And then we turn around and look at third grade performance and determine how many prison beds we should be building. That's insane for us as developing nation as we are, for us not to be making the investments that are necessary in our people to ensure that we're competitive and and productive to compete with the rest of the world, because we're in a global economy. I make no doubt about it.
To you, Mr. Hardy, the same question. How would you make college more affordable?
Yeah, look, we're the richest country in the world, but frankly, there are poor countries with richer people. And what I mean by that is that income is less unequal in some of these other countries because they have decided to make investments in basic human infrastructure like education. And so for me, I believe in free 4-year college. And I'm not talking about just community college. I'm not talking just about public college either. I think that we should really ask ourselves whether we want to create a 2-tier system whereby if a poor kid gets into Stanford, I'm sorry, you can't go there. You have to go to the state school. The rich person who's getting into Stanford is going to be able to go without any qualms. And so we talk about free public college. I don't see a reason for us to distinguish between someone going to a public college or private college, provided that the college is a nonprofit entity. I think that's critical. The other thing I believe in, and maybe this has to do with the fact that I'm the poorest person in the legislature with a negative net worth of about $100,000, I believe that we should cancel student loans. The president has the authority to do this via executive order. He hasn't done it yet. We should encourage him to do this. We should, gosh forbid, look, the point of vying for power is to use the power you have to do things that reflect your vision that you have for this country and what you think working class people deserve. I want to see Joe Biden use his authority to cancel student debt. If he doesn't do that, then the United States Congress should pass a piece of legislation to make sure that this debt is done away with. And on the question of how do we pay for it, look, corporations and wealthy people are enjoying historically low tax rates right now. And this is the result, not just of the Trump tax cuts, but of tax cuts years before that. I mean, think about what we're fighting to do in this reconciliation bill. We are fighting to get corporate taxes and taxes on the wealthy back up somewhere in between the Trump tax cuts and the Bush tax cuts. Think about that, right? We are fighting to take crumbs from the rich so that we can fund basic needs that poor and working class people in this country have. And so I believe that we need to raise the corporate tax rate substantially, close loopholes, make the capital gains tax rate equal to the highest marginal income tax rate. And I also believe that we need a wealth tax. All of that is critical, and that's how we end up paying for stuff like free college.
And lastly, to Ms. McCormick, to you, how would you make college more affordable?
So I believe that we need to definitely fund free 2 years. So we need to get that passed. But more importantly, I want to draw attention to an issue that happened around 2008 and 2010. 2008, 2010, there were a rising number of people who were suing law schools and other institutions because the amount they paid in tuition didn't guarantee them or wasn't even worth the amount of the job they were going to get. And those cases actually got settled, but no one ever addressed how did education skyrocket? Why is it that the cost of education now is so high and you cannot find a job to help you pay that back? That's what we have to address. And that's the reason why I don't believe that we should be focusing on paying certain private entities. They need to bring their costs down because what they're doing is trapping us. They're putting us in a system that enslaves us to pay these loans because we feel like we have to go there to get a better education. Where if we take some money, invest it in our public institutions and actually start looking into investigating these private institutions who have overnight doubled their tuition, overnight. and they get more access for federal funding to give loans. So now this has become a money-making business where we pay the price. So I don't believe we should reward them for that. I think we need to take a look back into it and reduce it. In addition to that, to help everyone get to the school of their choice, we have to increase the Pell Grant. But the way we do the loans have to change, because a lot of people now who get into it, me and my husband are both attorneys, and the amount that we are paying in loans is astronomical. And that's not even what I signed up for. So understanding these rates are looking very similar to what we saw going on with the housing market. That's problematic. So we have to address the real issue with education right now. And it's the fee schedule. It's how much they're paying in interest. So we have to cancel some of that for people who already have the loan. And for the next generation, we have to provide at least a free option and then start penalizing the institution who doubled it on us just because now they're just trying to make more money and they feel like they're getting away with it.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll start again with you, Ms. McCormick. We have seen all across the country that healthcare is a contentious issue, especially for different members of the Democratic Party. Where do you stand on healthcare and specifically on Medicare for all and the public option?
So I am a strong supporter of Medicare for all. As I mentioned, my background is in healthcare administration, in healthcare, and even being a federal advocate lobbyist for healthcare in minority communities, especially low income when it comes to federal funding. With that being said, the biggest arguments we had pushing forward Medicare for all was the fact that they kept on saying the budget's too high, the cost is too high. But what they were doing, the equation they were using was an equation that takes all the sick people we have presently and extends them onto Medicare for all. That's the problem. When you look at other health insurances, what they do is actually introduce preventative health. So they'll cover your fitness, going to the gym. They even cover reversible treatments of diabetes and high blood pressure, anything that has to do with congestive heart failure. Those are the highest amount, those are the highest cost of healthcare. If we're able to start trimming it down and going towards a healthier society, which includes making sure that we have healthier foods, then what we're going to find is that preventative care will cut our healthcare costs in half. And that's how we get Medicare for all passed. Now, I've been lobbying in DC, I've been advocating in DC, and it's so hard when you're not actually a member of Congress to just do it. And so that's why I even started running, because I said, this is ridiculous. It's like you're talking to deaf ears and they keep letting the other side, the Republican, saying that, oh, the math doesn't add up. I've managed more than a $200 million budget for healthcare, and I can make the math work. So right now we need a strong advocate who can go to Congress and take Medicare for all across the line and don't give them the avenue to dispute the numbers. And I could do that. And that's how I always separated myself. And that's why I'm 42 years old. And I've been able to go so far in healthcare because this is my niche. I know how to get the job done and I know how to do regulations. My legal background, my healthcare expertise, my master's in business administration have all brought me to this culminating moment when I can get the job done for the district.
Awesome, thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Hardy. Where do you stand on healthcare, and specifically, where do you stand on Medicare for all and a public option?
We need Medicare for all. I think it's imperative that we pass Medicare for all and that we improve Medicare by expanding what it covers and also by expanding what it covers without anything out of pocket. And when I say that we need Medicare for all, I mean single payer Medicare for all. That means that there is no more private insurance. And that also means that no one is paying or even allowed to pay out of pocket for medical services, because then you create a two-tier system whereby rich people can basically get better care from the medical system because they have money out of pocket that they're able to pay. I'm talking from experience because guess what? I have great insurance. I have ADHD. This is, a developmental, disorder. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. I seek treatment for ADHD, but the very best treatment providers who are the specialists, they don't take insurance because their clientele, it's, rich white parents from Boca, and they have no problem forking over $400 a week to their treatment provider out of pocket. And so even though I have insurance, the very best providers are unavailable to me because they don't even take it. That's why we need single payer Medicare for all to not only provide universal access to care, but to stop there from being a two-tier system of healthcare, one for the rich and one for the poor. And again, we pay for this by realizing savings system-wide by getting the insurance profiteers out of the way. We pay for it also by empowering the federal government to negotiate with drug makers for the price of drugs. Then we pay for it by taxing the rich. They say that Medicare for all is too expensive. It's $30 trillion over 10 years. That's $3 trillion a year. For those who don't know, we spend $3.8 trillion a year in the healthcare system today. So we would actually save $800 billion annually if we went to a Medicare for all system. So I think it's imperative that we do this not only to provide access to care, but to provide more or less uniform care so that people don't have a better or worse chance of dying based on how much or how little money they have in their pocket.
And Mr. Holness, lastly to you, where do you stand on healthcare and specifically Medicare for all and a private option?
So Medicare for all is essential for us to move forward. I witnessed firsthand the fight that we had and passed in the Affordable Care Act. In fact, my real estate office, which was used for Obama's campaign, the first place he had in Broward County to operate from 24/7. The coordination of community support for the Affordable Care Act was done through Ms. Donaldson, who was on his campaign team, who then went to help galvanize the community to get the Affordable Care Act. And still what is happening. So we have an incremental process that's on the way. Medicare for all is the next step that we need to go to and get done. I think it's achievable. In terms of eliminating people's private insurance, is going to be another step that we'll have to take. It's going to be a bit more of a fight because there's some folks who think that it's great, but we know that it isn't for most people. So that would be what I'd look to do to move forward and Medicare for all right now. The other thing that we need to do is the expansion of Medicaid. These states that don't take the money, we must find a way around them to get the expansion of Medicaid done right now. There are a lot of poor people that need this care, and it's costing us a whole lot more money in emergency room care and other healthcare costs because we don't have people being able to get preventative treatment or preventative care now. There's another big issue that we're going to have to address also, and we hear about food desert. Well, there's medical care deserts. Many of your lower income community does not have the same access to healthcare as other communities. I've been working for years with nonprofit organizations such as Broward Community Family and Health Centers, where I have written letters to the federal government to get them support where we've gotten funding and support through the county. So we're going to have to build out the infrastructure for more healthcare centers right within the community, especially where people are low income, so they can get to access to that care readily, and we can do that now.
Thank you. And thank you all for answering that. Lastly, we'll move into closing statements. Just a reminder, these are 3 minutes long. Mr. Holness, whenever you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Thank you. Thank you for having this forum. I will continue to be a champion for economically and politically empowering people, strengthening families, households, and businesses, creating policies that improve access to opportunities and greater economic outcomes, and unifying everyone across ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds. We're all in this together. We are all on this ship now as one people, and we must realize the importance of ensuring that helping others help us also. Last year passed the Racial Equity Task Force after looking at a study that was done by City Financial that says racial inequity in America cost our economy $16 trillion in growth over the past 20 years. But if we're to fix it, we could grow our economy by $5 trillion over the next 5 years. That's something that will benefit every American, regardless of where you're born, what your ethnicity is, what the color of your skin is. And we must realize that we have to do this. So should you send me to Washington, D.C., I'm going to continue to work on ensuring that we grow the economy to benefit every person. Entrepreneurship is something that has driven our country. And in many of these poor communities, you don't have the same amount of business ownership as in other communities. We're going to have to transform the SBA into an agency that not just shuffle paper for loans, but become an agency that empower our small minority and women-owned businesses by giving them technical support and greater access to capital, because that's what it will take to grow the economy in many of these communities that are now suffering economically across our country. We must also work to sell more of our goods and our services to the rest of the world. And most Americans are not aware of the fact that the Chinese are actually taking away many markets from us. They're outperforming us in commerce around the world. We need to ensure that we're growing our businesses to export more of our goods and our services. And that's why I started Florida's International Trade and Cultural Expo, now the largest trade event in the Southeast United States. We got a presidential award in 2019 for this. And that award was given out since President Kennedy. We will host it again this year, as in 2019 when we had 60 countries and almost 2,000 people present. What this does is help us to sell more of our goods and our services and inform our business partners, our local businesses, how they can sell more of our goods and services. The criminal justice system is broken, and we must fix it in order to grow and allow for prosperity for all. When you look at the state of Florida, Blacks make up 17% of the population, yet we are 49% of the people who are in our prison. There's something very wrong with that. It's robbing us of human capital. We must get together as one people, one country, and I'll be pushing to ensure that we're unified across all ethnicity, all groups, to move an agenda that's progressive and inclusive of everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Holness. And now, Mr. Hardy, your closing statement.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for caring about this special election. This is important. Margins in the Congress are small. I think it matters not just that we elect Democrats, but that we elect the right Democrats. I think Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, Josh Gottheimer, and others are teaching us that each and every seat, each and every member matters. And that's why I'm running, frankly. We are at a historical turning point in the history of this nation. When you look back at it, look, disparities by race with respect to housing, wealth, education, health, they have actually widened over the last 60 years. If you look at what's going on with the Republican attack, not just on our freedom of speech, as they did with House Bill 1, but also on our voting rights and on reproductive rights, this could be the first generation of Americans in a long time to have fewer rights than our parents and our grandparents. Certainly that could be true for our women and girls, but that's also true in a lot of ways for people of color who need access to the ballot, who don't want to have their districts gerrymandered so that their representatives are chosen for them instead of them having an opportunity to choose their representatives. We are also fighting against the Republican Party that has taken a turn toward fascism and towards stoking right grievance in order to maintain power. So what's at stake in this election is adding another member of Congress who is going to speak up and speak out about what a dangerous moment this is for our nation, and in particular for the most vulnerable people in our nation. This election is about making sure that we have someone who understands what the stakes are, and someone who is really going to fight for poor and working class people, for people of color, for sexual minorities, the LGBTQ plus community, for women, for folks who have been fighting on their own to have an equal say in this country. And I have much respect for everyone who is running. I think it testifies to the progress that we have experienced. When Al C. ran for this seat, he was the only person of color who was running for this seat. Now we have 11 people of color from diverse backgrounds who are running. This is the progress we're fighting to protect. And that's why I think this is such an important election. If you look at my record, I have a record of standing up for my constituents. We got community IDs done for the undocumented community in Lake Worth there. Stopped our city from shutting off their utilities during the pandemic, fighting the voter suppression during the session, fighting against the attack on women's reproductive rights, fighting for the trans community. We need someone who is going to go up to Congress and do something other than blend into the bushes. This is not a moment for us to go up there and worry first about being good colleagues to each other, and second, about making sure that the voices of the people who sent us in that room are actually heard. I'm concerned about representing my constituents first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And if you're standing between me and my constituents and what they deserve, then I'm going to go through you, around you, over you, underneath you, whatever I have to do to get it done for them. So I appreciate you for bringing us together. I hope you know why I'm running and the passion that I have for serving my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. And now finally, we'll go to you, Ms. McCormick.
Thank you so much for having me today. And I am Sheila Chefilus-McCormick, the first name on the ballot. I am a child of immigrants. My parents came here fleeing a dictator, and they worked very hard. I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, and moved here when I was 13. And the only outlet I had was education. So I know how important it was. And this district is very special for me because when I got here, that's when I realized that I couldn't read on that level. And the teachers worked with me night and day for me to get to where I am today. And so when they said I couldn't go to Howard, I should look at a community college, I fought hard and the community believed in me and I got there. I fought hard and even went and got my master's in business administration in law school. And I was able to achieve what I was able to achieve at a young age because I was fearless. I was able to look at and think about what we could be. How can we be and how could we get there? And I found people who came together and we were able to do it systematically, continuously. And that's how we moved forward. We need someone who has vision. This seat, it's a special election. We have a short amount of time. And if you think you're going to Congress without a plan and you're going to get something done, nothing will get done. Those relationships, I've been working on them for the last 10 years. The plan, we've been working on our plans for the last 8 months so we can get the job done. And that's what we have to look at in leadership. Who actually has the heart of the people? Who actually has overcame? I've gone through so many hardships raising a daughter with attention deficit and other learning disabilities. I fought to make sure that we had other parents who can have access to different types of therapies, even to the point that we fought for 7 years to get money put in through the healthcare bill for kids with disabilities. And we just won that because they put $3 billion out for our kids. And Florida gets $200 million of that money. But that just goes to show you when you have the heart and the desire to do something different, it will happen. So I humbly ask you to support me on this mission where we have a new hope, a new dream, and we can be different because we dare to be different. And I have a track record of that. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And I look forward to moving mountains with your support because you are our engine. The young people are how we get there. You are our strength in pushing through. And we need you in this election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCormick, and thank you to all three of you for coming and attending. We really appreciate it. We did record this and we will be posting it online. If any or all of you would like a recording of it, please let us know and we can definitely send it your way. Also, just with your being here, you automatically place yourself into our endorsement process, and we will be deciding that over the next few days. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Dylan, anything else you want to add?
So first, again, I want to thank all three campaigns for being able to be here today. And I also say, as someone who personally was born and raised in Broward, it is definitely very nice to see a very seemingly progressive vision for this seat. Just because, I've seen some of the things that you've talked about firsthand, and I know that it's a lot of work to be done. And I think, carrying on the legacy of, a titan like Alcee Hastings is a big responsibility. And I, look forward to whoever ends up in this seat continuing that mission. And so I thank all of you for being here on behalf of FCD. And then, like Mitchell said, that y'all will be included in our endorsement process, and then you should be, aware of the outcome in the next couple of days. So I really do appreciate you all coming out and just being advocates for the community I grew up in, as well as for an area of Florida that really desperately needs strong representation.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. You are the future that will determine how the world runs.
Thank you.